Let's just talk a little bit about the way that Ermotti is setting this up and the kind of the tension he's trying to create between these two. What's the objective here? Is it ultimately who's going to step into his shoes?
It pretty much is, actually, Guy, because there was a bit of a clear path for Iqbal Khan all along. He was the heir apparent. He had the global wealth management empire, which is, UBS's bread and butter. But it's such a huge task, and it's such a huge business to oversee alone, because previously he was co-managing it with Tom Naratil, and then got sole ownership of it. But what's key in this global wealth management business really is the US, the business division in the US, because that's what's paramount. That's where UBS is sort of subscale. So this is where the strategy is going beyond the integration of Credit Suisse. This is going to be like kind of the core focus. And with this new appointment of Rob Karofsky, it will add a bit of tension, because it's no longer just Iqbal Khan, the heir apparent. You now have someone else of a similar caliber stepping in, and also sharing this responsibility of growing this global wealth management powerhouse. And Rob's American, overseeing the US makes also a lot of sense. He has the IB background, and what they've inherited from Credit Suisse is mainly the IB in the US, right? So it would be his job to kind of fold it in. So that's not an easy task, and that's a good task, actually, for Ermotti to hand over to his potential successor.
Yeah. What does this tell us about how long Sergio is going to be around for? Can I read anything in terms of the timeline here? I'm assuming that if we're going to set this competition up, it needs to run for a few years before we know ultimately who the winner is going to be.
Absolutely. There's still a bit of uncertainty as to when Sergio would step down. There's been different timeline laid out, but the latest he said that he would stay beyond the integration, because first of all, he wanted to see through that integration, but also the strategy post-integration is the US, growing in the US. So he wants to see that this is, a well-oiled machine before he goes. And the latest, he said he would stay until 2027. So we still have time, but there's plenty to do, A, for the integration, and B, for the growth strategy in the US. So he's not leaving anytime soon, but it'll give him enough time to see who is the best place to replace him, really.
Well, Myriam, I think it's curious that, specifically in Asia, what the strategy actually is from UBS, given that if you look at some of its peers, they've been pulling out of Asia. You've seen fund flows exit Asia. You've seen layoffs across Asia. Morgan Stanley, I think, the most recent example. What is UBS's strategy in Asia?
UBS is still fully committed to Asia, and whilst we've seen other banks sort of kind of pulling out, they've always been kind of adamant that APAC is one of their core business. They're doing really well there. Thanks to the acquisition of Credit Suisse, they actually won some market shares in other regions where it would have taken years to grow inorganically. So they're not going to let that go. And also, I think they're a lot more forward-looking in that sense that, of course, it's a bit of a rocky, or the kind of a rocky stage for Asia at the moment, but UBS looking long-term, and also they're looking at ultra-high net worth. They're not going anywhere. And so they just want to show also that they're committed to the region with this appointment of Iqbal.